We are surrounded by applications on our computers, on our televisions, on our phones, even on our watches. Apps are all around us. Hey everybody, this is CIT 12 and it is week 7. Week 7 is going to be a fairly full week for us. And in case you didn't guess from the cold open, it's going to be all about applications. So we're looking at chapter 4 this week, which is all about application software, software that's meant to do the things you want to do versus software that the system needs for itself. And so that's what we're looking at this week, all about applications or apps. If you are in the mobile world, for some reason we call them apps in the mobile world. So take a look at chapter 4, make sure you read that. There is a lecture video in the week 7 folder, take a look at that, and a quiz on chapter 4 as normal. Now your discussion this week is going to be a little bit different. We're not actually going to use the discussion boards in Blackboard. Instead, you're going to have your discussion in an application outside of Blackboard. By far, the most popular and most important set of applications that we have are your productivity software, right? The stuff that you would use for work. Microsoft Office is by far the most popular version of that type of software. Word, Excel, PowerPoint, I mean, these words are sort of synonymous with what they do. But there are other versions out there. And so this week we're going to look at another version, something that you might be able to use for class or even someday be able to use for your work. And there are some features that are kind of nice and you'll get to see some of those. So we're going to be looking at Google Docs. Google Docs is kind of like Microsoft Office, but it's all based online. And so you sign in with your Google account, which you already have if you have a YouTube account or a Gmail account. All of those things, it's the same username and password, you can sign into Google Docs. Google Docs is free, which is great. So if you're on a budget and you don't want to spend money for Microsoft Office, although you do get Microsoft Office for free as a student, not everybody gets that option. And so anyway, Google Docs, it's a free option, which is kind of nice. The other thing is that because Google Docs is based on the cloud, right? It's essentially on the web. It lives on the internet. It allows you to collaborate in ways that you just can't collaborate with Microsoft Office installed on your hard drive on your computer at home. And so we're going to be looking at that today. So your discussion is actually I'm going to say PowerPoint, but what I really mean is a slide presentation, right? It's a presentation in Google Docs. There's a link in the week 7 folder. You don't even have to sign up for Google Docs to do this. You can do it entirely well, your account will be anonymous, but make sure you put your name on your slide. What I want you to do is click on that link and you'll be in a shared document along with everybody else in the class. If you happen to be logged in at the same time as someone else, you may actually see them in Google Docs with you, working on another slide. What I want you to do is to create your own slide, put your name on the slide, and tell me your thoughts about Google Docs. Play around with it a little bit. See if it's something that you think you could use for class or use for whatever else. One of the nice features is that real-time collaboration. There's a chat window you can open, so if you happen to be on while somebody else is on, you can chat with them. The idea here is that you can, in real time, collaborate with people. And so if you think of like those, you have to do a report for class or something, you have to do a presentation with a group. Right now, you would have to all meet together at the library at like 6 o'clock at night because that's the only time that everybody could meet. You'd have to talk about all the things you wanted to do. You'd go off and kind of work on your PowerPoints separately. And then you would have to come back and then sort of combine them into one big PowerPoint. It's kind of a hassle. Whereas you could say with Google Docs, hey, everybody just jump online tonight, whatever time you want, and then you can chat with the chat window. If you're really adventurous, you could do a Google Hangout, which would allow you to just talk and actually even see their faces if you wanted to. Video conferencing sort of just built in, which is nice, but not necessarily tied to Google Docs. And then as you're communicating, you could just like, oh yeah, I want to create a couple slides and we'll talk about this. You could actually just create the slides right there and everybody will see it happening live. Everything you type, you're seeing it happen live. It's a great way to collaborate. It's real-time collaboration, something you just can't do with Microsoft Office. Plus, it's free. So anyway, check out Google Docs, and then in your slide, put your name on it. Tell me your thoughts. Is this something you could use? Do you think it has some advantages? How would you like to use it? Whatever. You can also put in a picture if you'd like, a picture of yourself, a picture of you doing something that you enjoy. In other words, play around with it a little bit. Change the colors, change the fonts, add a picture, add maybe a link to a website that you enjoy, whatever you want, all right? So that's your discussion this week. It actually will happen in Google Docs, and it's about Google Docs. And lastly, there's your lab. Your lab is this week is your first lab in a program called Excel. Excel is a spreadsheet. It's a tool that was used for business for the most part. It allowed people to manipulate numbers. Here's the thing. People use Excel for all sorts of different reasons. Excel, I will admit, is probably one of the hardest programs that we will study in this class. We start with Word, which a lot of people are already familiar with. We're moving to Excel, then we'll finish with PowerPoint. And PowerPoint people generally find to be a lot easier. So we'll finish off the semester with something light. But Excel is incredibly valuable. And even if you think, well, but I'm not really into business, that's not something that I'm going to do for a career, you'd be surprised how often you find Excel sort of in your life. I've had friends who are nurses, and when they moved up and got promoted, eventually they had to sort of control the particular shift, and all their scheduling was done in Excel. I know people who have worked as salespeople, and they actually used it for business purposes. They created a spreadsheet that tracked sort of what they got credit for when they were selling additions for cell phones or whatever. And based on that alone, that spreadsheet they created, they were promoted. And probably my favorite example, my sister-in-law works for Disney. She's an Imagineer. She is a talented designer, an artistic person, all these wonderful things that you would never, ever associate with Excel. And she's been an artist for her whole life. And then at some point she works for a big company like Disney, and she's given for the first time an actual budget with like real money, like a good amount of money. And the problem is when you get a budget with a good amount of money, they also give you an Excel spreadsheet and tell you you need to track your spending and make sure you manage your budget. And so whatever you do, whatever career you decide to pursue, chances are if you get good at what you do, you're going to run into Excel. They're going to promote you to the point where you have to use Excel. And so we want to make sure that you get a flavor for it now. You kind of know how to use it, what you can use it for, so that you can solve problems in the workplace when you are working, and that you won't be held back if somebody decides to promote you. Trust me, Excel is everywhere. So we're going to be looking at Excel this week. Because it's sort of a different program and a different paradigm, there's actually a second lecture video in the Week 7 folder. It's an introduction to Excel, and I talk about a number of the things just to kind of get you started on the labs. But the labs work the same way as always. You can check and see how to do stuff, and you'll kind of learn as you go. But if you'd like to get a little bit of an intro to kind of understand maybe why things work the way they work, check out that lecture video. So there's a lecture video, Intro to Excel, and then your Excel Lab 1. And that'll be the first of 3 labs in Excel before we do our big test on Excel, all right? That being said, definitely pay attention. I know students tend to like to sort of zone out with Excel, but it is an important piece of software, even if you don't think you're going to need it now. And that's it. It's actually a fairly standard week. It's just that there's a couple new things thrown in. And so the chapter quiz, that will feel completely normal. The discussion will feel a little weird because it's taking place in this other Google document rather than in the standard discussion board. By the way, you do not have to reply to another student because that doesn't really make sense with the slide presentation thing. But regardless, that'll feel a little different, but actually will be fairly easy. You just click on the link and you'll be able to create a new slide. There's actually a video showing you how to do it as well, so you shouldn't get lost there. And then The lab is just a lab like any other lab. It just happens to be on this new software that, you know, may not feel as intuitive to you as some of the other programs. You're probably used to Word, but you may not have used Excel yet. So definitely take a look at that lecture video. I think it'll be helpful, and make sure that you spend some time with the lab this week. All right? If you have any questions, give me a holler, and yeah, you know my email. All right? Have a great day, and I will see you online.